So I'll just talk a little bit today in our continued efforts at mindfulness from Joseph's book. We've been moving along slowly on the Seven Factors of Enlightenment and having talked about sati or mindfulness and investigation, dhammavichaya, and energy, variya, and joy or rapture, piti. So today we're moving along a little into relaxation or tranquility, passaddhi, of both the body and the mind. And Joseph divides his chapter, it's chapter 29 in that book. It's actually a relatively short chapter, surprisingly enough, compared to some of the others. But, you know, as we manage to do, I'm sure it'll take us a while to talk about it because there's no hurry. And when we talk about the Seven Factors of Enlightenment, one of the things we might do is reflect on how rare it is in spiritual teachings to have a clear understanding of the precise qualities that lead to awakening. And this understanding takes our journey out of the realm of mysticism or unquestioning faith or accident and into the realm of how the mind works. What conditions and creates suffering, and what qualities lead to freedom. The Buddha taught how each one of these enlightenment factors arises naturally out of the preceding one in the chain of sequential development. So we can recall how mindfulness is the underlying condition for all of those others to follow. And when there is a continuity and momentum of awareness, which is what I talk about a lot when I'm leading, the meditation, is the continuity of mindfulness and awareness being with it. And so when we recall how mindfulness is the underlying condition for all of the other things, we can also see that there's a continuity and a momentum of awareness, of a direct encounter with the experience of what is arising. And when we're present enough to investigate, then we can understand what's going on. So we see what object arises. Maybe it's in the breath, or maybe it's something that's occurring in the body. Mindfulness arises, awareness touches it. And this investigation of the dhammas, the truths, the second factor of awakening is investigation. So we're investigating, that's a wisdom aspect of the mind. And it means both directly experiencing the nature of whatever phenomenon is arising and seeing how this experience correlates with the broad scope of the Buddha's teaching. So, for example, through mindfulness and investigation, we begin to see and realize for ourselves what is skillful mind state and what is not a skillful mind state. We can go toward the skillful and we can discard the unskillful. And so this isn't book knowledge anymore. It's wisdom of our own experience. And as a result of investigation and understanding, the next factor of energy, next two factors, energy and rapture, they naturally flow. Having seen clearly what is wholesome and what is not, we're motivated to arouse the energy, the interest, and the strength and the courage to develop the former, what is a wholesome state, and abandon the latter, what's unwholesome. And we can see simple and powerful expression of this motivation, I think, in our own lives when we actively engage with the 5 precepts, which I was bringing up in our sitting this time, that following the precepts is a decision, it's a commitment to refrain from certain things that we know to be harmful to ourselves. And we arouse the energy to undertake the training based on our understanding. And so, contrary to possible apprehensions that will be burdensome and difficult, we can often find it to be just the opposite. The strength and energy of our commitment to the precepts can bring a feeling of joy and confidence. We no longer are carried away by old habits. We no longer continually waver about actions we know that are unskillful, but keep on doing. And based on mindfulness and investigation, Viriya, or energy, steadily plants this flag of sila, of harmonious living. We have dedication and confidence in the teachings. And then our living situations, all of our current living situations, can be part of the practice. And then we can begin living the practice instead of just doing the practice. So then the most recent factor that we talked about is rapture, and it's born from the freedom from remorse that comes from practicing the precepts of non-harming, and the increasing momentum of awareness that comes from sustained, balanced energy. Rapture is the quality of intense interest, and it arises from a close and caring attention to whatever is arising. So we may see boredom arising, we may see agitation arising, we may see peacefulness arising, but we have these first, the ground laid of mindfulness and investigation and energy and joy to contribute. As I mentioned in the sitting instructions today, when I was mentioning like boredom, for example, which is really a lack of attention, so that when I'm feeling bored, which happens oftentimes, or disinterested in my sitting practice, and I can really notice that feeling it's giving me useful feedback, that my attention has become half-hearted. There was something that, I think it was Ledi Sayadaw. He's a great Burmese meditation master and scholar. And he wrote this quote: "Rapture is the joy and happiness that appears when the power of seeing and knowing increases." Rapture is the joy and happiness that appears when the power of seeing and knowing increases. One time, Ananda asked about the rewards and the blessings of practice. "What, Venerable One, is the reward and blessing of wholesome morality?" "Freedom from remorse, Ananda." "And of freedom from remorse? Joy, Ananda." "And what is the reward and blessing of joy?" "Rapture, Ananda." "And of rapture? Tranquility, Ananda." And the Buddha goes on to say that these states arise naturally, one from the other, the qualities. So the next one that arises is the quality of calm. It's the next step in the unfolding sequence of the factors. And it's one that plays a crucial and very powerful role on the path of liberation. But it's often...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Well, I have just a little bit of confusion here. I tend to think that we need to guard the sense doors in order um, to arrive at um, states of rapture and tranquility. And I tend to kind of hold to that in my mind and heart. It's part of the ways that I can condition those states
Skillful
of being.
states.
Yeah. And so that is definitely a part of it, wouldn't you say? Yeah.
Yeah,
because if you're going to live as a layperson, even as a monastic, you come up against tension and friction and difficult matters. But in lay life, you definitely do on a regular basis. And relating skillfully.
Yeah.
That is really takes work. Anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's okay, because those are the skills of concentration. To try to keep out or develop concentration so that the hindrances are not so present. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which, I mean, and then in this sequence of the factors of enlightenment, after tranquility comes concentration, comes samadhi. But these are factors of enlightenment, and we hear them all over the teachings in other ways. So it's not starting with concentration the way we would say just in our practice, because we're talking about a different series of, mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity are all taught in other places. This is just a different compilation of the way that he taught we could arrive at enlightenment. So what was I thinking of next? I think it was the qualities of calm. And so it's one that plays this crucial role and powerful role, this quality of calm, because we have to have a kind of composure, a kind of serenity, to not grasp on to all the various mind states that can come in and fly around and be present. And so, but sometimes in talking about the practice, people don't talk about tranquility that much as the enlightenment factor. But the word in Pali is Passaddhi, and that's translated as calm or sometimes serenity or composure. It's the soothing factor of mind that quiets and kind of calms disturbances. And it manifests as peacefulness, or sometimes it's referred to as cooling the mind, cooling the heat of the mind, in both the mind and the body. It's, like what a tired worker feels like when they sit down in the cool shade of a tree after a sweltering day, or what a child feels like when their mother lays a cool, soothing hand on the feverish forehead. Passaddhi encompasses both physical composure and mental tranquility. And this quality of calm that keeps the mind composed and unruffled in times of difficulty, it's almost a little like equanimity is present. In Buddhist psychology, it's described on how it brings along with it all the other wholesome states, such as lightness, wieldiness, as opposed to unwieldiness, and proficiency, and a kind of sincerity. And it seems sort of obvious when we think about lightness or wieldiness or even proficiency. But how does calm bring sincerity? When our minds are tranquil, there's a natural genuineness, an honesty, and a freedom from duplicity that are present. And when our minds are tranquil, that it can allow us to be with the meditation better, to understand the teachings more. In the meditation teachings, sometimes we hear about the danger of becoming attached to calm and peaceful states of mind. And when we first touch this space of tranquility in our meditation, there can be a profound sense of relaxation, a relief, a kind of ease, especially as we contrast it with the speed and the directness of our daily lives and with the difficulties and struggles we sometimes experience in our practice. The tranquility.
Maybe a mind free of conflict.
Yeah. And it's not something that we can force out of ourselves, but it's something that can arise, especially if we happen to be noticing as we're sitting, if we can call upon these qualities of enlightenment. We can notice, well, first we have mindfulness. It's at the fore. And then we investigate what's happening. And we have just enough energy. And then there might be some joy in the practice, some gladdening of the mind. And from there, we can feel a little more relaxed. We can have a little more tranquility. I mean, we might find ourselves wishing for it or having an intention toward it in our sitting practice, but it's not necessarily available on command. So we just try to be present with whatever is arising in our sitting, and it's because we're understanding this to be as one of the factors of enlightenment, we can just notice it if it arises. And since we are educating ourselves about it, we're able to identify it if it's there. I can say that, like today, I had a challenging experience in the morning when I was trying to contain my agitation or aversion to something that I needed to do because I felt called upon by the pressure of something that I wasn't expecting to do. And so, I dealt with that in regular movement in life, being with this challenging state of mind and still doing what I needed to do. And then I noticed, when I sat down, I was going, oh good, we get to go sit for a while. So then I noticed once I sat down that that place of calm just naturally over time, with calming the busy, busy mind, or just noticing how busy the mind was, and then just seeing what else was arising. Somewhere along in there was a sense of tranquility, a sense of calmness that I couldn't have, asked to be there. But I was able to see it as being there, and without grasping onto it, because as they say, it can be, tranquility can, sometimes it can be so enticing that we might start practicing just for that calm, or becoming attached to it and identified with it, and then we forget that it too it's still a constructed state. It's not total freedom. And so we can easily sink into the enjoyment of it and forget to bring mindfulness to it. And when I had that sense of tranquility, mindfulness was still present without being grasping at wanting to keep that state. Mindfulness was still present. And so I didn't sink into the enjoyment of it and forget about mindfulness. So it's an important caution, and the Buddha clearly emphasized the importance of calm in the list of the awakening factors. The happiness of a tranquil mind plays a key role in the path of awakening. And here the instructions on the factors of enlightenment found in the Satipatthana Sutta provide crucial guidance. If the tranquility awakening factor, or any of the others, is present in him, one knows the tranquility awakening factor is present in me. If the tranquility awakening factor is not present in one knows there is no tranquility awakening factor present in me. One knows how the unarisen tranquility factor can arise, and how the arisen tranquility factor can be perfected by development. And it's mindfulness that knows whether tranquility is present or not. And investigation, energy, and interest, the other factors, what we might call meditative intelligence, it leads onward to the development and the fullness without becoming identified or ensnared by it. So maybe I'll stop there for now. I think I can go a little bit further, but maybe there's ways to develop calm. So I think maybe I'll save that for next week.
Can I say a little something that overlaps with what you've said? Today I noticed as I was outside, there are certain times when I go out for a walk, it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be a fair amount of noise at certain times. Fair amount of noise and kind of objectionable activity, just because there's a high school close by and kids are out making noise and doing,
doing kid stuff,
doing what they do in groups, yeah. And I've had some aversion to it in the past, definitely. And I just said to myself today, it actually was quite wonderful, I have to admit. It was very simple. I was walking down the road and the certain things started to happen. I think it was noise coming from someone's car. And sometimes it's so much like, it's like they yell things out at you on occasion, And I said, okay, this is aversion, and this is an awareness. And it was pretty cool because I really didn't engage with it. I was able to be with it in just, it wasn't like I wanted to welcome it in, but I was just able to be with it and recognize that truly that this is aversion, and it's in awareness, and I continued to walk, and it actually, I felt free of identifying or free of the hook, I love what the Mahayanas call the hook, Shempa, and it really that's what it feels like to me, is the hook. But I really didn't identify with it, which was very cool. And I think it's being available to employ that simple tool now and then,
and being able to know when the factor that you're talking about is not particularly tranquility here, but it's mindfulness and awareness. That the mindfulness is there because it has arisen and you're noticing it. You're noticing so like the thing about tranquility, the it can arise, and the arisen tranquility can be perfected by development. And the unarisen tranquility we can notice, and it can arise to be developed as we notice it. And that's where investigation and energy come in handy.
Yeah, a little further on down the way, I was in the woods, and I was more available to the beauty of the trees, and I saw a big raccoon, and I mean, all of a sudden it was a very beautiful experience. But I'll stop there because I know Mike wants to say
Mike,
something.
I saw you waving your hand. Any minute now, you're going to push the reaction button and put your little waved hand up there.
I guess I've always thought of calm or tranquility as being not the primary goal, but more of a byproduct of mindfulness. Because being mindful doesn't necessarily mean being tranquil.
Definitely.
It means being present.
Yes.
And tranquility is a nice byproduct of mindfulness. And I can see that as something to strive for. But I've never really thought of it as primary to the goal of mindfulness. And I'm wondering if I'm misunderstanding that.
In this particular kind of order of how things are addressed in the Seven Factors of Enlightenment, mindfulness is one of the factors. So
right.
Mindfulness is one of the factors. Investigation is one of the factors. In each of these things, as they add up to, go on top of each other, mindfulness, investigation, then energy, then there's rapture that can arise. Then the rapture can go to a calmer mind. It's not as excited. Then there's the concentrated mind, which is samadhi. And then we have equanimity, where there's where we're totally balanced. This is just being taught as an understanding of that there are 7 factors of enlightenment, and they lead to awakening, and mindfulness is one of them. So in this particular list of 7 things, mindfulness is the basis. Mindfulness is the basis for all of this, because we need to have continuity of awareness and continuity of mindfulness continually. And having continual mindfulness, like Margaret said, that can start keeping out the hindrances. But here it's not, the purpose is not mindfulness, the purpose is awakening. And mindfulness is one of the stepping stones on the process of awakening.
Which we're conditioning ourselves toward. So, it's part of a larger transformative experience. And that's more skillful.
Bob?
I was wondering here if we're a bit throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There is a reason why we have ears in our survival. If one totally obliviates the sound inputs, you may not dodge when you need to, when somebody yells at you because something bad's going to happen or something like that. And we're striving for tranquility and calmness and so forth. But I think there has to be a balance to all of this. And we just can't go overboard.
I hear you. And I think that's where mindfulness plays a big role, because it is flexible and it is aware at each of the sense doors. And so that's where we get back to mindfulness is at the fore at any of the sense doors, because that's how we receive all of our information, is from any one of our physical sense doors and the mind sense door. So that's a good point, Bob. Takaaki, any comments over there on your side of the microphone?
Yeah, I think Mike said it's sort of about striving for tranquility, or sort of this idea about getting it, which I always found it to be I always wanted it to be the case. Concentration, and especially sort of these things that you sit down, or whether you're like living your life, you kind of want to get there, but the reality doesn't go. I think this is what, like I think Bob, you were getting at this, sort of like it doesn't really happen that way. Things come in anyway. So yeah, I think I'm still having difficulties with actually, like sort of like in practice, not grasping tranquility too much. And I don't know how, like, is there, I mean, apart from just sort of like practice, is there sort of like a...
Practice.
Is there a way to look at that? Because I think that just comes, I mean, it just seems so, right? I mean, when you picture the ideal, I picture the Buddha sitting there.
Right, as if he were tranquil, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, all hell is breaking loose in his mind until the very end.
The interesting thing is, though, is that the like, for instance, with the aversion that I was speaking of, I could have avoided going out altogether, but I didn't. It was how I related to what was happening.
What came to you?
Yeah.
That would be classified as a one form of aversion as well, no? If you didn't go out.
Oh, sure.
Would it be? I don't know.
If you didn't go out because of that.
I'm imprisoning myself.
Yeah.
Exactly. But at the same time, I don't want to imprison myself while I'm out there as well.
Right.
You know, and you work toward more skillful means.
And one thing I would say to you, Takaaki, is noticing the energy, which was the one back there before joy, is we have to have just the right energy in our practice, and we can't strive toward accomplishing something or trying to grasp at something, because that really ends up causing ourselves suffering. And we can notice how tight the mind becomes trying to reach towards something. So really these 7 factors are just, it's just a way of understanding the Dhamma, understanding some of the truths that we're taught, and, letting it trickle in and settle in, because it's something that maybe from time to time in your practice, when you're the least expecting it, there will be a kind of tranquility there, and you can notice that it's there. And if you don't know that it's possible, you might not notice that it's there. But you're right, it's not something to try to strive for. It's something that more likely will arise on its own as mindfulness is present and investigation is present, and we have just the right amount of energy. And sometimes it just shows up because we're trying to just be everywhere with our mindfulness, and mindfulness might notice, oh, right now the mind is relaxed and calm. There's a kind of tranquility in the mind, but the body's restless because, I'm uncomfortable sitting in this chair. But there can be calm happening in the mind even while restlessness or aversion or some other thing might be happening in the body. That takes us back to mindfulness and awareness at the bottom line, as you're talking about, Mike. But these are just other factors, and each of these factors can lead us toward awakening.
But now, Kendall, the other part of this is that sometimes with the striving, we notice the tension from the striving, and we notice that we don't want that. You know, and I mean it seriously. I mean, how we're, you know, I've been told by a great teacher that we're building a skill. We're building skills. You know, and sometimes to feel that friction is a good thing because you know what you don't want.
And then it's interesting to notice, if you notice that you don't want it, then you have to notice, is there aversion around not wanting it?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that you're just skillfully...
There's going to be some aversion because you've gone through this not wanting. And that's a good thing to notice too.
Because there we have mindfulness still at the fore.
Yes, it's in awareness. Yep.
Oh, I tried to put...
Fascinating.
I tried to put the neighborhood house link in our chat, but now I don't know what happened to it, so I'm going to do this and see if it comes up. Because some weird picture came up instead, and I don't know what it's a picture of. So
I like the brook out in back of you.
You like the brook? Yeah, I do too. So
Okay, it's up now.
Don't get confused by it. Just let it wash over you like this babbling brook is washing behind me, and know that it's one of the factors of awakening. And so if you find it sometime in your meditation, you'll go, oh, there's tranquility in the mind, or there's joy in the mind, and mindfulness is present and awareness is present. So they build on top of each other. Investigation is present. The right amount of energy is present. Joy is present. Tranquility is present. They're all there tumbling along.
And I think that brings us to wisdom for this balance.
Yep. Wisdom can arise from that investigation. Yep, absolutely. Well, through the goodness that arises from my practice, may all of this benefit others, and may we carry kindness and understanding in our hearts while we continue staying relaxed on our path to awakening. I'll ring the bell one more time.
Bye, folks.